Well, without further ado, I do want to turn it over to the stars of our show. Our first group is Team WirelessWhere. Please come on up.
As Daniel said, we're the team that's been working with WirelessWhere this semester. And I'm Jacqueline Stelzer, a communication major from Allen, Texas.
I'm Rob Kish, a finance major from Dallas, Texas.
I'm Marjorie Fritz. I'm a marketing major from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And I'm Blake McGuire, computer engineering major, also from Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know, growing up with computers and the internet, it's pretty easy to take them for granted. I know that I can from time to time. I know that the ability to access information quickly and pull up things like directions is a pretty good convenience for me. But I also know that for other people, that type of ability can really mean the difference between life and death. Consider what occurred on Tuesday, May 10th of 2005. Officer David Uribe of the Phoenix Police Department, a 22-year veteran, pulled over a car in an innocuous traffic stop for a busted taillight. He called in the license plate check and proceeded to approach the vehicle. As he walked towards the car, the driver pulled out a gun, opened fire, and shot him in the head and the neck, killing him. It was only after that fact that the results of the license plate check came back to reveal that the car had been stolen. If this information had been available to the officer instead of requiring a dispatcher, then this day might have ended very differently. It is because of this and other reasons that there are companies like WirelessWhere out there to provide solutions for first responders to give them the information that they need.
WirelessWhere is a startup company that was founded by Sridhar Radhakrishnan and John Antonio. The technology was developed here in-house at OU and provides solutions, as you heard, to first responders for things like communication and location assistance. And WirelessWhere is currently providing these solutions to 2 police departments here in Norman as well as up in Moore.
And now we're going to delve a little bit more into what Officer Assistant does. And these next 2 screenshots are actually what the police officers see on their laptop in their vehicle. The first of these is the maps page, and as you can see, there's aerial maps of virtually any location that the officer would need. And these balloons that you see here designate the locations of their colleagues as well. And this is important because in case they need to call for backup or some situation that they've not planned for, they know where their fellow officers are located. Next here is the unit screen, and it's similar to the one before with the balloons, but the officers are listed by the task that they're assigned to and where they are at that time. It's just another way of formatting that the officers have access to. This next screen is the calls screen, and the calls are listed by status. There are 4 categories that calls can be under. The first is my calls, where the officer can manage his own calls, and this sends out a broadcast to the other officers, letting them know whether or not he's on a current call or he or she has completed their call. The next is holding calls, which are ongoing calls. All calls, where all officers can view all calls that are currently being attended to, and then completed calls, recently completed calls, remain up for a period of time. And this next screen is the NCIC database, and the NCIC is the National Crime Information Center, and what their database does is provide information to the officers about criminal justice. And so basically, like what Blake referenced before, the officers have this at their fingertips to enter in a plate number, and they can get information not only about the vehicle but also about the driver. And in the example that Blake spoke of, the officer would have instantly known before he approached the vehicle that the car was stolen, and obviously would have taken extra precaution, possibly called for backup. So this is a great thing that it's right at their fingertips, and previously they would have had to have contacted the dispatcher with a delay in receiving the information. As
as a team, we decided to establish a few things that we need to accomplish in order to help WirelessWhere succeed as a company. First, we chose to prepare a business plan to help the company to grow organically. Second, we decided that we need to interact with all stakeholders in order to help benefit all parties. And lastly, we decided to determine the optimal solution in order to have the best outcome.
The first step that we took in determining the optimal solution was to conduct a market analysis. It would do two things for us. A, give us a sense of the existing market and the potential for growth within it, and also use the survey of the competition to see how we stack up in terms of strengths and weaknesses against everybody else. So during that analysis, we came across three main points. The first is the component growth system. And basically, there are two kinds of companies, can be generalized to two kinds of companies in this space. There are those which offer complete systems, and there are those which offer single components, like WirelessWhere does. A typical system that would be used in the police department consists of three components. We have a mobile component in the field, which is where the officer types in and is able to access information. We have a database, the records management system, which is used to store police information and other records. And there's a computer automated dispatch system that works to connect the two. So because of some concerns about system reliability and overall system costs, most police departments will tend to order complete systems from one company as opposed to ordering components in a piecemeal fashion and then trying to put them together after the fact. So that typical buying decision tends to hurt WirelessWhere in terms of the addressable market. The second point that we came up with was market saturation, and the founders of the company were able to provide us with over 100 potential competitors just based on their visits to one trade show, and further research on our part uncovered significantly more than that. So there's definitely a lot of other competitors in the space. And one thing that we noticed, despite a great deal of variety between the competitors, is that on the whole, they don't tend to do very well financially. You can tell BioT here is the company with the largest installed user base in the world. And you can see in 2003 and 2004, they lost approximately $4 million and $14 million respectively. In 2005, through a combination of licensing technology and acquiring other companies, they were able to turn a small profit. And the theme of turning profits through licensing and acquisition will be revisited at a later point.
Also, in our market analysis, we discovered that there is a unique niche opportunity with the smaller departments, specifically a population of under 10,000. And as you can see, just a decade ago, only 5% of the under 10,000 population used in-field computers. And now you can see they have had a rapid growth of 18% annually to a 47% use, but there's still 53% that's untapped. And if WirelessWhere can take that and tap into it, and they have a lot of profitability advantages.
And initially, our idea was to grow the company organically, and in doing that, we realized that we would need about $300,000 of initial investment, and we'd need about 8 employees. As you can see there on the graph, although you are making a profit after 4 years, the profit you're making is quite small and doesn't quite take you out of the red. There's also some other issues with this in that there's no interest factored into this that you would have to be paying on your loan. And as well, there are some other intangible factors, such as the fact that a young company would not have the network that a more mature company would be able to go out and look for customers. And secondly, they would also not have the they would, as Blake talked about earlier, we would be a component instead of a system, so that would limit our customer base for that. And as well, as it says, there's a third point that we would need. This model relies on growth of a constant growth every year, and as well a 100% retention rate, which is not always possible.
As using the results of our market analysis and the financial projections that Rob came up with, we decided that it was time to go to the founders and get their input as to where they really wanted to go with the company. And through those discussions, we basically decided that there were really two main options to consider. And those are either to operate the company and try and grow it organically, or to try and enter into some sort of a strategic relationship. And after taking into account what's going to be best for all the parties involved, we decided that a strategic relationship probably is going to be really the best option for WirelessWhere. So as part of the strategic relationship, there are actually 4 particular options underneath there. You have the ability to license, there's the acquisition possibility, and then also strategic alliance and partnership. Licensing in a non-exclusive or an exclusive position would allow the company to still harvest earnings from the product, but they would also be able to pursue other interests outside of their traditional product line in terms of research and development. The acquisition might provide them more of a financial upside, just in the terms of all of the assets of the company would be acquired, and that they wouldn't retain control of the software. And there's also the strategic alliance and partnership, and the advantages of those options are the company's able to leverage existing sales and marketing channels and networks of larger companies that have been around in the industry a little bit longer. So basically those are the four options that we laid out in front of the founders.
And through this newfound knowledge, through our meetings with the founders, we decided to put together a strategic matrix that involves 4 desired features. First, their market penetration. Second, their need for a mobile component. Third, the quality of their existing products. And fourth, their growth strategy that's currently in place. We came up with, as Blake discussed earlier, the many competitors that are in the market. We chose 5 that best fit partnerships for WirelessWhere. And as you can see, there is 1 or 2 that kind of exceed above the rest, that we actually are in current discussions with 1 or more of these companies.
And if we were going to have some sort of a strategic relationship with another company, one of the things we looked at was whether we'd want to do a lump sum or a per-seat license. As you can see on here, the lump sum is significantly less than the per-seat license, and that mainly has to do with the risk associated with dealing with a younger company, as well as the health of the industry. A lot of the companies there, as you heard earlier about BioKey, a lot of companies are having trouble either turning a profit or just don't have the cash flow that would be necessary to make a lump sum purchase. So it would be our recommendation that we would try to pursue a per-seat license fee that would really help increase the benefit not only for OU and WirelessWhere, but also for whoever we would partner with. And it would also put WirelessWhere into a better operating position.
As a result of our visiting and revisiting the market analysis and the financial section, we've come up with a set of final recommendations for WirelessWhere that we think are really going to help them work down the path towards coming to a successful strategic relationship, or entering into a successful strategic relationship with another company. And as Marjorie mentioned, the first step down that road has already been taken. We have had a meeting a few weeks ago with the president and vice president of one of the companies that we had listed, and those talks over the past several weeks have progressed, and it appears that there's mutual interest in at least some sort of business relationship. But given that, we think there's still some points that need to be visited. The first of these is that they need to establish their preferred strategic relationship. As I mentioned, there are 4 possibilities there. So it's important that the founders get together and select which one of those 4 meets up with their personal goals the best. It's going to allow them to present their needs and wants to potential partners in meetings on a much more unified front. It's much more professional if everyone comes in from our side of the table knowing what they're looking to get out of it. Next is that they should try and get those meetings by contacting the additional companies listed on the strategic matrix, and also with using their own personal networks. Obviously, as I mentioned, they were able to provide us with over 100 other competitors, so they obviously have a pretty extensive knowledge of the landscape here. So by using the matrix that we provided and also their additional text, we think that trying to enter into some talks with some other companies is beneficial, A, in terms of trying to increase the probability of entering into a successful partnership, and B, also providing some negotiating leverage with the companies that they're currently negotiating with. And the final point that